we'll talk about REST design principles as we saw, right? REST design API should be designed in a way such that it complies with the following features. So what are those features? What are those protocols that one should agree upon before actually sitting to design the APIs and actually develop it, right? So platform independence. And we already discussed, right, why a QA engineer needs to know about it is when we talk about each of these points, you'll also get to know as why as a QA engineer, I want to know whether it is a platform independence or not, or things like that, right? So let's delve into each one of those REST design principles at a high level, and knowing them, you will realize why it was important to know. All right. So talking about platform independence, very straightforward, right? Any client that is making a request to the API via HTTP protocol should be able to, make a call to that API and be able to parse the response, right? That's a pretty straightforward thing. And please do raise your hands if you have any questions, and I'll be able to answer once I finish those points. Okay. Next point is even so when you do testing around that, right? If you test around different platforms making the call to the API, it should still be served, right? So that is very important, and that's when we want to know about this. Next principle is talking about resource URIs should be noun and not verbs. How many of you understand this? Yes, Manju Bhashni.
We use the noun rather than the action that we are going to perform. Like we are going to get something, or we're not going to have that. We are going to have the like a book or order. We are going to have it like that to represent the API calls. Any action, there will be multiple APIs with doing different stuff, but on the URL, we have only the nouns there.
I mean, I feel you know what it is, but I don't think it is coming out in the right way. But let's see. Let's see what others have to bring in, and then we'll redefine things. All right. Thanks, Manju Bhash. Yes, Ashish.
Yeah, I think resource URI is the domain part plus there is resource path, right? So the resource path should be like a noun, like saying that employer. It should not say that get employer record. Get is like coming should from the HTTP verb get. So when we are saying post, it should like slash employer. Just that's it, not post employer. It should be understand from the HTTP verb. And when it's like about getting a record, the resource path should not have like get and all embedded in that resource path. It should be understand from the HTTP verb. Same goes for
And
delete and post.
why do we want to do it that way?
Security. We don't want to let the like for HTTP verbs, like as I said, like REST design principle talks about heavily relying on the HTTP verbs. So we should be relying on those verbs to perform any actions on that resource on that server. So we should not be telling the user that from the resource part that this is for get and this is the verb. It should be understood from the verb, because that's the design principle, architectural style for doing that action. The verb part, the action, the HTTP method type is for verb defined in the REST design principle.
Yes.
I think this is for the security reason, I guess.
Not security, but yeah, we'll discuss. Don't worry. Thanks for bringing in whatever point you brought in. Thanks a lot. Yes, Agnishwar.
Yeah. So basically, URIs are like they are the resource name that is present in a particular location, right? So from that perspective, we should name the resources as noun, not something as the action. So it should not be a verb.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we are claiming it as like a REST design principle. But why are we restricting that kind of naming convention, and why are we trying to do it that way is not something that we are seeing it. So I mean, I don't see that coming in a perfect way from you guys, but yes, I mean, good try. That's a good one. Yes, Dhana Prakash.
Um, yeah, I'll try because the REST API has get put the verbs like get put delete. If you have a noun, it means the get a code or get an object or something or put an object. So maybe that's why it's better to just leave it as a noun.
Uh, yes and no, but I'll let you know.
You said no.
No worries.
Okay.
Thank you, no worries. I mean, I'm loving the way you guys are trying. But yes, that's not what exactly. I mean, you are. I mean, all of you are very close to. I'm very sure you all know why it is that way. But I think the right way to present it, if an interviewer has to ask you why they are noun and not verbs, so how you would let them know. We can discuss. Yes, Molly, you want to add something?
I'll just try, Suruchi.
Sure,
Same
sure,
line.
please.
Uh,
I appreciate that.
as nouns are only the keywords like get post, why they are designing principle, as you mentioned in earlier slide. Design principles are nothing but the protocols they mentioned for organized way of doing. So I presume they mentioning noun because it will give the user, okay, this is what they don't need to know internal how exactly it's doing the verbs does. So that's why they're using noun, like just to maintenance the protocol. This is how the protocol works. I just tried, Suruchi, as
Okay,
per
no
my
worries.
understanding.
No worries. Thanks for trying. The thing is like, okay, before I say, I think Dhanaprakash, you have something to add, or if you can lower your hand.
Oh, yeah, I lowered the hand. But another thing that came to our mind is because it's a representational state transfer of an object, it transfers the state of an object. The object has to be a noun. Uh, just another try. Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it.
See, obviously, when I mean, we are claiming to follow certain protocols, they have come with certain protocols. But for every protocol, there is a reasoning why it is there. It's not just there to be followed just because it is there, but it has a reasoning, right? Why it is followed as a REST design principle to be having all those URIs or resources to be named as noun and not verbs. You guys have mentioned all the points in terms of those actions, they need to be verbs, but not the actual objects on which the actions are performed. So if we are having the objects named in terms of verbs, we are restricting its functionality to limit to that action itself. Do you guys follow? Does that make sense? If you have any question, please raise your
No.
hand.
Can you elaborate, Suruchi? I didn't understand.
Yes, I will.
Can I come again?
So
Yeah, same here.
no worries. So the point is, say, okay, let's look at what is here, right? So say you have all these methods which are verbs, but the endpoint or object or API, we generally call it API as like a general term, but on which these methods are acting upon should be noun, which you all said, right? But say, how about I say an API, like for example, in the case of, how do I give you an example? Say you have get me products, right? So get product. So if the API is named as, say, like get product, am I not restricting the API to just do one function of get, right? Will that function, I mean, will that API allow me to do other actions on it? Will it allow me to do a post with get product?
I'm getting, yeah. So you said like if it is like resource, then if it should be coming as part of the resource, that's get resource then slash ID, so that we can get the we can post and get on the same resource with
Exactly.
different words. Yeah. Okay.
You can use all sorts of verbs on that object. But if you are making the object itself a verb, you are restricting its functionality, right?
Right.
You don't want to
Understood.
have your APIs to restrict its functionality. You want to leverage the API to do all sort of things. Correct? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got it.
All right. So that's exactly when we say, so if you happen to work in a project where you see your APIs as a test engineer, see, you are not there just to do the functional testing. Today in the industry, if we limit ourselves to do just what we are expected to do as like a basic requirement as a functional test engineer, that's not, you're not adding any value. What add-on value are you bringing in the table when we sit together as a team to work on a project, right? A developer might make, generally I don't see any developer to be that dumb to be naming such things. But yes, when we do have certain REST design principles, we want to make sure that as a team we are aligning to those protocols, which will incur benefits in the long run. Today, your API is supposed to be doing just get, and that's all is the functionality as coming as part of API documentation. But if you name the resource to be like get product or get certain things, right, whatever is the API, then you are just making it restricted to that action. But in the future, there might be a possibility of expanding that API to implement other functions as well. Then you are restricting it, and then you will have to do a lot of code rework when you have to refactor stuff and do such sort of backward compatibility in terms of implementing all those functionality which already exist and still adding more functionalities to it. So there, that's when this principle comes into handy. You as a team can talk and decide on, naming the objects the right way as it's supposed to be. So not just in terms of naming, in terms of designing the rest. If you see any implementation flaw in terms of not being complying the protocols to REST, you can obviously point that out and talk about and call out in the team and discuss about it and have those rectifications measures in place. All right. So that's the importance of REST design principles. And when you talk in an interview setup, when you talk about REST design principles, believe me, guys, the kind of impression that you set in the interviewer's mind is certainly going to earn you brownie points. They are going to be impressed because you are coming from the root and talking about things and relating logically to the root, which is called the REST design principle. So that sets a really great examples.
So
All
you were
right.
talking about that Microsoft link. Can you share that link, blog
I
or
will in
something?
the break. I'll look for the link and share with you guys. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Please post that in the Q&A section so that I don't forget that. Thanks. All right. So the next one we talk about, is the grouping of related resources. What does this mean? What sense does it bring when we talk about the API? Any idea? Yes, Ashish.
I think it's like I said just 2 minutes back, grouping of related sources like it should be like a slash employer. Then we are grouping all those employers in that resource. Like we have one resource slash employer. So in that path, if we want to create a resource, then we are sending slash employer. If we want to get, then slash employer slash ID. If we want to delete that slash employer slash ID. So like all those actions which can be performed on the resource on that employer can be grouped in that single resource path. Post, put, delete, patch, anything. Like
Okay.
slash employer is for posting. So again, we have a common resource path. Then getting, we have to just append the whatever the unique identifier we got from the post. When we're trying to get it, we have to just give in the after resource path, we have to give that identifier and we'll get it. So is that
Okay.
my understanding?
So, I mean, that's not the context here.
Okay.
I will let you know why. Yes, Girish. But thanks for making an attempt. We'll discuss.
Yeah, I just thought to share that it's like a path in the API. It's like if you want to filter it out, certain conditions on the APIs, we use slash.
No, that's not the point here as well.
Okay.
But thanks for trying, Girish. Yes, Namdi.
Hi, I'm thinking along the ways of, say, for example, your product URL, your product endpoint. You want to make sure that all of your product endpoints are in one location, and then from there, when you drill down with your path parameters, you want to make sure they're in the same location. So, like, you want to relate it through path parameters, and just kind of like making sure that your path parameters are like on the same page. So after URL, we have product, and after that, tables, and then after that, whatever the product is, making sure they're all in the same linked together.
I think you are very much in line with what people talked about earlier, but sorry, that's not the context here.
Okay.
So I will let's discuss about that rather than creating more questions around it. Related resources should be grouped together to avoid chatty clients. What do we mean by this chatty clients? So what happens is, say for example, I log into Amazon, right? And I just look for my, I'm an existing user. I have placed certain orders in the past. So I want to look and make a call to the order. And what is the API in question is the order table, right? So it fetches all the orders I have made in the past. And is that it? That the application should serve me just the order that I was looking for? How about me grouping them as in like all the other actions that I would like to perform in terms of the actions that I want to perform in terms of doing more things around that order, right? So even in the products page, when you look for products, right, it's not just the product that you are looking for. It will kind of show you all the related other products that can be possibly looked upon in the subsequent request. So instead of a user making those as many requests, like say now I made a query for the order, next time I make another query for canceling order, next time I make another query for updating the order. So all those handy links that can help the user to be progressing further in the application, to avoid those chatty interactions, that will help save a lot of network interactions and network bandwidth if I provide those resources in advance to the user, so that it is helpful in promoting the business when we deal with products. Like, so I search for one product, I get all the related products as well, right? So all those strategies can come into picture when I want to reduce the number of interactions and make the application more efficient and user friendly when it comes to the API designing, right? So in the response of whatever I'm questioning, so in the response of order API, I would send all the possible links that would be related to that order, right? The user will have an option to cancel the order, the user will have the option to reorder or update order or things like that. Does that make sense? Any questions?
So just to kind of be clear, you're saying that, so for example, say you're placing an order, you're saying that all the information about that order should be like in one, like I guess one API call, so to speak?
Correct. The response should have not just information about that one particular order in specific, but also various other things that can be grouped together and send in the response so that the user does not have to make another request to the server.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Okay, so if, for example, place an order on Amazon, like I said, for cups, for example, you should see
Mhm.
that order of cups, the pricing, the tax, the order number, the shipping
Yeah.
address,
Yes.
etc., on that one
And
API
also the
call.
current price of that order. You would
Correct.
have ordered that thing in the past, but now you are getting that order above link where you can reorder with the current price listed. Things like that. I mean, there could be many
Okay.
more strategies around it, but ultimately what it boils down to is try to group as many resources together in one response, which makes sense for the business in terms of promotion, in terms of better user experience, in terms of avoiding chatty clients.
Okay. That makes sense.
All right. Yes,
So,
Ashish.
Suruchi, this information, which is further to avoid the other sending of the request from the user, should
Mm-hmm.
be coming in the response body, or
Yes.
are there any example in response headers also?
Response headers just gives you more. It's like a metadata, right? Metadata data about your data, right? But the actual response should be your data.
Yeah. So this grouping of related resources can be done from response header anytime, or it should be, if we talk about
No.
specifically, or it should be always from response body only.
See, there are two strategies you can think about when it talks about related resources, right?
Mm.
We are talking about resources now. We are not talking about what is there as part of your head. See, headers are metadata that your front end designer is going to consume to see what is that information about your data that is coming in. So we will talk about that, all those header details later, but that's not the thing here. That's not the thing here. Just get this point right here, that we are talking about the response right now that is going to have information not just about the resource that was asked, but also about all the related resources in the response section, not in the header. Okay.
Okay. So there are some like other response head and like there are some status codes also. If this is not a response header, like if we give like some headers like if modified since, if modified none. So
Yes, Ashish.
all
So
those
what
headers
you're
are
talking
there.
about,
Yeah.
sorry. So what you're talking about is the headers, and talking about headers are nothing but metadata. So we will talk about it. That's not the point here. Let's separate that together. You will know why I'm breaking that apart right now. So don't focus about the metadata. I'm talking about the data.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
And why I'm talking about the data, you will know as I talk about it. Right now, I just want that whatever resource my client is asking, I'm not just going to send that resource. I'm going to send in as many information that could help the client consume that data in a better way and make the business more efficient. How I will make the business more efficient? If I provide, if it is like a product API, I'm going to not just send my the product that the client asked for. I'm going to send several other products that would act as like a promotion sort of thing. Then it also gives the user a better user experience when they are looking for similar products in the response, right?
And will
So
not this cause any security issues? Like when we were earlier studying in college for Linux, they were saying give the minimum information to the user. Now in Rest, we are giving the maximum
obviously, right?
information.
I mean, see, you will give an information which is not going to penetrate and create any security issue. So that's how you're going to design. But logically thinking of the use cases that we are talking about, will it not make sense, Ashish, that I talk about order API to have the response giving me all the potential links that the user might eventually ask for that order?
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, whenever like why I'm asking like in my team like when we were discussing about thing, we will like told like there are some security concerns That's why we are not giving this information in this body. So I'm just trying to better understand that part. But anyway,
Yeah, sure. I
I
mean,
will
you
wait
bring
for
in
it.
a great point. You bring in a great point. Your points, your questions are not invalid. People might say, okay, why would I give information? So obviously, information that makes sense to the business. So obviously, that make things that make sense to the business should comply security concerns, the compliance concerns, and a lot of other things, right? After addressing all those things, there are few narrowed down things and list of items that I would still want to return as part of the response, which is kind of related, but not the actual resource in question. Does that make sense now?
Yeah. Thank you, Surji. Yeah.
No worries. Thank you. Before we start, if you guys have any question, you can all please lower your hand unless you have a question. And Ken, can you please mute yourself every time? If at all, if you have anything, you can raise your hand. I'll be happy to answer. But until then, if you can mute yourself. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic in REST design principle. So resource abstraction. What does this mean? It's like, in any object-oriented programming, the kind of abstraction, benefits that we see there is the same, very much applicable here as to, REST API should act as an abstraction to the actual response. Example, access to DB and any changes that happens in the background is abstracted and not kind of sent as any response or any sort of implications that a user or client should know in terms of what's happening in the background. So that's exactly what it means, and nothing more to that. But if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, we just move on to the next one. Just wanted to bring in here because we want to discuss major points as to what could be the REST design principle. So if you happen to see in a response that should not be part of the response, it should still be abstracted. You can still question and call that out and discuss to see why it is there. So that was the whole point bringing this topic here. And Ken, I still see you unmuted. I'm trying to mute you as many times I am, and every time I see you unmuted. Can you please mute yourself, please? Thank you. Okay, so the next one is HTTP method based operation. This is again, since REST is based on HTTP protocol, so the methods that HTTP supports should also be supported by REST. So that's the underlying idea here. And idempotency, very, very important topic. What is the understanding that you guys have with respect to idempotency? Any idea, any of you? Yes, Namdi.
Idempotency means that when you make a change to the API, the change should take effect. If you're trying to implement that change, it's not taking effect. It has idempotency.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Am I off
again,
base?
I think you understand what it is, but it's not exactly coming out the way the interviewer would want to hear.
Okay, so can I try again?
Yeah, sure.
So idempotency means that, okay, so you're using a put call, right? You're making a change to that particular API. When you make that change, but that change is not making the call again, but that change is not showing as a change. Do I have that right? Or
Not exactly.
okay, all right.
Let's see. Yeah. We'll see what Manju Bhashni has to bring in. Yes, Manju.
Item potency is like a repeated call with the same to the same URI, the same method, doesn't change the backend the database in a very wrong way. So if it is get method, how many times you get the thing, that is not affected at the backend. At the same time, if you are like trying to delete it, the first time it deletes it and the repeated delete, the resource is not found, so it's not going to do any adverse effect on that. The same thing with put, because if the resource exists, it's going to make a change. Otherwise, it's going to create a new and do it. So any repeated put operation is not going to adversely affect, but a post is always going to create a new resources. So if by mistake we call post 2-3 times, then it is going to make every resource different resource each time. So that is not idempotent. That's my understanding.
Correct. I mean, that's the perfect understanding, and that's how we want to, design the APIs so that any API with these operations get, put, and delete should be designed in a way that it is idempotent. Meaning, think in terms of creating or making implications to the resource from the server side. How does it impact, right? That's what the impact itself is called, the idempotency impact. Whether it is creating or deleting or adding or whatever the resources, does it make change in the backend, right? If it does, yes, then it is, a non-idempotent. But if it does not, then it is idempotent. So as Manju rightly said, right? So get as many number of calls you make for a particular resource with one ID, you're going to get the same resource every time. It's not going to impact or create any additional resources in the background or do anything around with that resource, any change in the backend side. Same with put. Sometimes developers create resources using put, which is not right. Put if no resource found, it can create calls to that is going to just have no impact, right? Any of you have any question?
I'm sorry, I think you were breaking up a little bit. Can you say it again?
Am I clear? Am I audible?
Yeah, now.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say is there have been many instances. I have worked on many projects where people use put left and right for creating additional resources, which is not right. To be talking exactly, put should be mainly used to update. When we talk about updates, yes, with put there is a restriction that you have to send the entire request body, and that's when leveraging that feature of put to create any additional resources is not the right way. Generally put should only be used where there exists a resource and you are just updating that resource, and that's when you are using put for. But using put left and right for creating resources is not the right way, and that's how REST is asking you to make put as idempotent, meaning it should not be capable of creating additional resources. It should be able to just put make an update. So every time you make a put call with the same request body, for the first time it creates, for the second time it is not going to create additional one, but it's going to update. But if it not matches, even if it's matches, it's going to update with the same. So every time you are heavily impacting the server, making it heavy on the server to process the put request, making it like do something which ideally doesn't make sense. So why do you even want to do something? That's when today, everybody wants put to be designed in a non-idempotent way so that it is not used to create additional resources. That's the whole point. For delete, what happens when we talk about delete, right? We are, for the first time you delete, for the second time you'll be given 404, resource not found. So meaning it is still idempotent, because at the end of the day the response that you got is not the same though, but the impact that it has made to the server, meaning no change in the server side, is still a good call out for being idempotent. Okay, so many times people get very confused in terms of, they say every time I make a call I get the same response, that's why it is idempotent. That's not the thing. In that case, delete will not give you the same response. Even for put, if you are creating a resource, it is going to give you 201. If you are updating the resource, it's still going to give you, I'm not very sure, I haven't tried this, but I think it's still going to give you 201 for a resource being created. But that's not what you want put to be designed as. It should just be used to update and not to create. Okay, and post, as we all know, and Manju also said and confirmed the same, that yes, making as many calls to post should create additional resources being attached with different resource IDs, and that's how we want post to be. Okay, so moving to our next point is status code. So as per REST design principle, all APIs that are being called should have returned a status code. It is very, very important for any APIs to return the status code for us, as in for client, to know, why and what happened with the, why not exactly, but at least what happened with my request, right? If you are looking at 200, okay, everything was processed well, things were accepted from in the server side, and it was processed the way it was supposed to be processed. But looking at other response codes, you'll get to know the health of your server as to how it's behaving. So status code is very important, and as per REST design principles, we need to have, any API should mandatorily respond with a status code. Okay, asynchronous processing, a very important point, and you'll see a lot of questions coming up in few minutes regarding asynchronous processing. Why is this so important? And when I talk about asynchronous processing, it also lets me, it triggers a thought that you might be thinking, the REST design principles that we've started discussing about would imply to all the APIs? Then the answer, is no. Not all REST. So few REST design principles applies to all. Like for example, status code, HTTP methods, being idempotent, and all these things imply to all, right? All of the APIs. But when talking about asynchronous processing, not necessarily it is going to, be meant for all the APIs. It is meant for specific APIs which is supposed to be handling larger operations. For example, there is an API which is responsible for triggering a large batch processing job, right? So how would you want that API to respond with, and how is it going to work, and how is it going to be designed? What are the different parameters you would want to consider when designing such APIs which is responsible for doing asynchronous processing, right? Today, technology is all moving in a space where we want things to be handled asynchronously. We want to remove the synchronous dependency to, make things efficient, make things better and more reliable. Right? So why do we want asynchronous processing to be discussed here is because there are a lot of APIs today that do this asynchronous processing in the background. So request for large operations should be designed to be asynchronous and be responded with a status code 202. Why? 202 is specifically meant for these APIs to say, hey, client, you've made this request. We have accepted it. We are not able to respond to you immediately with the response because we know it's going to take a long time. And that's when we just want to let you know that everything is all good. So that's what 202 means here. All right. Any questions? Yes, Manju.
So I have not worked on asynchronous with API testing. So I have this doubt. So when, okay, I have requested for something that is going to initiate something very huge. So it doesn't have an answer for me immediately. So I'm getting a 202. But when will I get an response? Is it something that we have to again check back the API with another get call or something to make sure the work is done?
Yeah. So how we do testing around asynchronous processes, right? You generally have some messaging services being involved here. Messaging service meaning something like Kafka or PubSub or things like that, right? So what, as in testing, what we do is we will have to kind of mock these events, right? So whatever my API is responsible for listening to certain topics, the moment that event is raised, it's going to listen to it and going to respond with whatever was intended to respond. All right. So we will discuss about this more in detail when we talk about asynchronous processing, as in like interview question sort of setup when we are coming up in the next few minutes. But for now, does that give you a fair idea?
Yeah,
Manju?
sure. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes, Namdi.
So with asynchronous calls, you're doing, I guess, more than one call and it's sent out one after the other. I'm not too familiar with asynchronous calls either. So that's how it's working. You're sending more than one call.
Yes, it's not just more than one call. It's just about the processing. Say, for example, one API triggers one workflow. That workflow, when I talk about workflow, could be anything, right? It could take about re-triggering certain other APIs and getting those response and percolating all that response in some aggregator service. And that service is going to, send that, event to the API call that was in question in the first place. And that event is going to be consumed by the first API and then send as a response to the client. Do you get any, are you able to connect the dots? I don't mind repeating it.
Well, I understood what you said. I'm not trying to visualize it in my head. That's all.
I
I
just
understood
think
what you said.
about it. Yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
No, I was saying I'm just trying to visualize it in my head. But continue. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. What I was saying is just try to connect the dots. Like you are making call to API A. API A in the background is triggering several other APIs as part of the workflow, right? For example, I have to create an order. So for the first time I trigger an order API, right? What happens? It has to go and trigger the system, whether the item is available or not. Then once it's available, it's going to fetch certain other things. It's going to fetch the latest price, the latest market trends. In terms of that, it has to fetch other related products. It has to say, so there are several part and pieces attached in the background process workflow that gets processed and then consumed by my calling API. Right. And that's when my calling API is going to wait to listen to certain events as and when they are published. It's going to be consuming them and it's going to publish the same in the front end. Right. And that's what my front end is going to be. So when you see a lot of things in the front end that comes after few updates and few seconds, that's a perfect example of asynchronous processing having in the background and certain things being constantly updated as part of events.
Okay. So like an Amazon order, for example, would be an example of like a status code 202, so to speak.
Sorry, what was that example of Amazon?
In an Amazon order, will be an example of like a asynchronous process for the status code 202.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Right.
Thank you. That makes sense.
No worries. Yes, Ashish.
Yeah, I can give some more example to Namdi, like he's looking for that.
Sure.
For asynchronous, like suppose like in my previous company, like we were doing the criminal background check. So when we putting the order for criminal background verification check, the resource was not created, it was just accepted, because there is a third API which is listening to it. Once it accept it and send the notification and acknowledgement, we'll say that it has been properly created now. Then we do another get call, and then we used to see whether the resource has been uh, changed from accepted to created. The same goes for credit checks also. When we're doing the credit history check, we were waiting for the notification from the TransUnion and Equifax and see whether it's getting changed to created. And I have one more question also, Suruchi, like,
yeah, please go ahead.
is there any REST design principle which talks about what should go in the request header and what should not go to the query parameter? Like I see there is a common pattern to send API key as a token to the query parameter also, and sometimes we send as a request header also. So when we should want, like when we should send as part of the query parameter and when we should send it as part of request header, and which REST design principle dictated.
I don't think, yeah. I mean, I get your question. I don't think there is a REST design principle to be talking about. It is a specific thing in terms of authorization and how authorization can best be handled. That's a different topic apart from REST design principle. It doesn't get included as part of the design principle here, right? But design principle is more specific to being API, specifically API, right? And how API should respond and take things further and things like that. So that is how more specifically principles are talked about in REST. But when it comes to authorization and things like that, that is more of a security questions. And I don't think, to my knowledge, there is a REST design principle directly mapping to identify what is the best practice. But if you talk to security principles perspective, there should be definitely a thing attached to this topic specifically, authorization and authentication, what is the best practice to be followed. So that is a separate topic altogether.
Yeah, I always get wonder what should go as a query parameter, because I see developers sending sometimes long query parameters, sometimes they change to request header, but that's the still gap in my understanding. I'm not able to. But yeah, but thanks for your answer. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, see, ideally, we should, to make things faster and efficient and still keep things secure, as many things we can send as query parameter that makes it faster. That's the only reason why developers are in favor of doing that. Otherwise, I don't see any reason that it should not be attached in the query parameter section. But depends on what is being sent. If it's like token here that you're talking about, obviously it should not be attached, ideally speaking. But ideal world, I mean, I don't know, it depends on what application you're dealing with and things like that.
Okay. Thank you, Surjit. Thanks a lot.
No worries.
Thank you, Ashish.
All right, so great discussion. Let's move on to the next one, right? Filter and pagination. Now, again, this principle again does not imply to all the APIs. This is specifically for the APIs which deal with large responses, and they want them to support specifically filter and pagination because it is obviously easy to handle and easy to parse through the response when it is paginated and filtered. So that's the whole point. I mean, there's not anything in detail here, but the main important points are yet to come, right? Synchronous processing was one of them. Idempotency was one of them. Next one we see is accept range. Here is where, Ashish, remember I asked you to hold on why we are looking at a header parameter later. So this is where accept range is one of the header parameter in the responses, right? Whether, and even in the request header, right? So suppose you are handling an API, which is supposed to be like a video content provider or audio content provider or certain very, very heavy content, which is well sectionized in frames. So you will send in the accept range first, what is the type? And secondly, what is the length of the content you are looking for? And this is specifically when your front-end developer is consuming an API who is supposed to be doing all these things, right? Fetching you the response for what you are looking for, right? Not what it is actually designed to send completely as an incomplete information, but it should be designed to be sent as to in the terms of ranges or whatever is the support. Depends on what is the API handling, what type of content the API is handling. So these header parameters we send in the request headers, and we do get in response as well as to what was the actual length of content being sent. So this accept range is very, very important, specifically when you are testing any streaming APIs or you're testing large content response and things like that. So you know what is the type of the data you are expecting. You should know what is the length of data. Even in the streaming APIs when you are fetching the responses. So think about a situation when as a front-end viewer, not front-end, rather as a viewer of an Netflix, right? You are playing a certain content, but do you think everything is fetched all in once? The entire video or the entire movie, whatever that you're trying to play in Netflix or whatever. So not everything comes together, right? There is a concept of caching. There's a concept of, accept range that plays into the picture where your front-end developer is taking care of those content management in terms of what is the next frame. This is the current frame that is playing, and what are the next few frames that I need to pull in from the backend to make it ready and cached to be played without any interruption to the user. So this kind of testing is very, very critical, and specifically when you are interviewing for, Amazon Prime, for their content product, or for Netflix. This is very important, and this is a very important question also, and you'll see a lot of questions around this as well. So basically, it also indicates that it supports partial content, and it should support partial content is what you should be testing as well. And whatever range that you are supplying, it is fetching from that range only and not any other haphazard ranges. And because here the content sequencing is very important, right? What if it gives you the wrong frame? Then the content where you are currently playing, it's going to fetch either the previous wrong content or the quite ahead of the content which is not in series of the content that is currently being played. So all this kind of testing around all the content driven APIs, accept range is very, very important. The next is Hatios.
One question is,
Hatios. Yes, please.
So this accept range is only for get, or it is for other HTTP verbs also?
It's mostly for get.
Okay, so
I haven't seen its usage in maybe it's now, since you're saying, I'm just thinking if you do a partial update with that range for that content, maybe that could also be a possibility.
fetching. Okay.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I don't see, it all depends how you want your API should be designed. If what I'm trying to say is, if there is an API to handle a content driven job, then there should definitely be a header parameter for accept range. That's the whole point.
If you don't mind, can I ask one more question if I'm
Yeah,
not
sure.
interrupting you?
Definitely, no problem.
Like you said that we want to see the previous and next. I am right now, this thing is going in my head like a pagination for web page where we have offset. We said first 50, then we do offset from there. So it seems like that just for the other media type. So how we are connecting the various pieces together, like we have having query
That
parameter
is,
for offset. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, though it is not related to the scope of this session, but still I would love to answer that, percolating all the responses and putting it in the right order is the job of your front-end developer. API's job is done when it was asked for a certain level of content with certain ranges, and it has fetched and given as a response as those content, and its job is done. Now, how your front-end developer percolates that, reorders that, fetches that, it's all the front-end logic.
Yeah. So
Does
as
that
per the
make sense?
application, yeah. So as per the application, they do some logical way to connect all those pieces
Yeah,
together. Okay.
correct.
Okay.
From API
Understood.
perspective, it's
No,
it's it's
nothing.
enough to understand that if you are testing the API, you're not going to test whether it is giving it in the right order or not. You're going to test in frames. You're going to test in the ranges that you want to fetch, and I'm getting that particular range of data or not.
Okay. So that is customer driven from the application. No
Correct.
standard principles. Okay. Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Suraj.
Nice. So talking about Hatios, or some people say Hatios, however you would like to pronounce, but what exactly it is, right? You remember I talked about related resources. So related resources is nothing but implicitly in the background implementing the concept of Hatios, where it is providing you hyperlinks to those resources which are related to the actual resource that you are questioning. Does that make sense? Do you guys follow what I'm saying?
Could you say it again, please? I'm sorry.
No worries. So when we try to say I hit an API, which is supposed to return not just the resource that I asked for, but also all the related resources. So how is it displaying those related resources? Like, forget about, I mean, you have to think from API level, guys. I mean, segregate your mind. What you see as an end user, that is completely different. But what you are seeing as an consumer of an API, think from that level, right? The moment you start thinking from that level, that I'm the consumer of the API, and I'm going to do some polishing around it and present it to my end user in the front end. So that is a different part altogether. Let's not focus on that part. We'll focus on the part where I am the front end developer, and an application thing is going to be painted as the way I painted to be presented to the customer. But before that, I have to consume that API, correct? And to consume that API, that's the part that you guys all need to focus on. So I'm going to consume the API, I'm going to get the response. So how is that response going to be presented to me? It's going to be presented to me in the form of hyperlinks. I'm going to add one button on top of that hyperlink so that the user, when it clicks on that button, it's going to make a call to that hyperlink. Does that make sense? Are you able to connect the dots? Okay, so that's exactly is the principle of Hatios. It's like hypertext as an engine to support application status. It's a strategy to provide responses with related resources, right? As hyperlinks, and those hyperlinks are nothing that you see in the front end. You will not see a hyperlink as such, right? What you will see is some better worded text or buttons on which you're going to click, and those are going to take you to those resources. Okay.
So like, for example, say for example, I want to buy tickets to a concert, and I do a query search for concerts. Like the next page would be like the different concerts, different venues, and all that. You're saying that would be an example of Hatios, like it's showing the different links that are related to that particular
Yes,
call.
absolutely. That's exactly what I mean to say.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Right. And take a look at this line, what it says. Hatios is mostly implemented in public facing APIs as one of the ways to provide documentation. Documentation is a very, documentation kind of word in double quotes when I say, but what exactly it means is like a polished worded thing that is presented to the end user, right? To understand what is it is going to do, but in the background is the link that is attached to that particular a word or a button or a text or something like that. But it is rarely implemented for internal APIs. Do you guys understand what is the difference between external and internal APIs?
Internal APIs are just like company level APIs that the public doesn't have to access or use.
Exactly.
So I guess an example of that would be like if we're logging into our system, something like that. Okay.
Perfect. I mean, that's exactly what it is, right? Internal APIs are APIs which is not exposed to your customer. Customer is exposed to certain set of APIs, which internally might call your internal API, and which is only you who can be able to test that API. If the end user suppose, see, APIs are designed not just to be consumed for some front-end applications. There are Google APIs which use Uber consumes, right? Those APIs are consumed by those applications which other organization might use to make solve their own problems, and which will not display to the end user of their product that okay, they are making calls to Google APIs. But internally, Google is also making calls to their own APIs to serve Uber. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
So that's how it is about. So internal APIs are, say, if you consider Uber, Google, and what happens inside Google, right? So Google has exposed certain enterprise APIs to Uber. Uber is consuming these APIs to, say, Namdi, who is trying to book a cab, right? And when Namdi is trying to book a cab, it is making call to the front end of Google, right? It is hitting some buttons or some text box or something. And Uber is just taking those input and making a call in the background to Google APIs, right? Google internally has like hundreds of APIs to serve that one response. So all those hundreds of APIs are internal APIs, and I don't think there's going to be any Hatios principle involved there, because they don't want to kind of, internal APIs don't want to kind of reflect related resources now here. Related resources and all those things come into picture when it is more of an external public facing APIs. All right. Yes, Manju, you have a question.
Yeah, my question was around the accept range. So we are talking about partial content. Okay, it's a movie. I want to download only a part of it and then keep downloading it. How is there a scenario where I wanted to download fully, like take for instance, it's a full picture, but of a high resolution, and it's a size is very big, but I wanted to download it once. Do we have to explicitly tell all those things in the header if it is a not a partial download?
This is a very good question, and thanks for bringing this in. I will request you to kind of hold on to it. We have a very good question around it, and you will have your answer there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, any question around Hatios or anything around public facing internal APIs? These are all very, very core concepts when we talk about APIs, and interviewers might ask you things around it, and some people tend to get confused between them. And so if you give this example of, say, Uber, Google, and things like that, it gives a very clear understanding that yes, you know in depth about APIs, what happens in the background, in the front, what happens to the end user. Is the end user the consumer of the APIs? No, it is like just hitting onto some button, and that button consumption is going to trigger some event, and that is going to make call to some APIs. So there are a lot of logic layers in between before the actual API is being questioned. Okay. Rate limiting, very important one. And the thing is, I mean, Ashish, remember you talked about security aspects, right? Here is where this REST design principle is also going to take care of your security aspects in terms of any, server you talk about hosting certain set of APIs. If you make like, millions of requests and hit which a server is not able to handle, right? The server crashes and gives you 503. I don't think any stakeholder would want to even think about this scenario, and they don't want to face this situation where their application server is completely going down, right? They don't want their services being unavailable even for, somebody trying to impersonate the user, actual users, and making millions of requests and bringing down the server. So that's when this important principle, the rate limiting, meaning all APIs, should support rate limiting for sure, specifically all those external APIs. Right? So it is a policy that limits the client with the number of requests that it can make. So for example, there is a client which is making like multiple requests, we should try to, implement or design, rate limiting design principle there, where it limits that no more than this many attempts will be allowed by this client. And it has to wait for it to, kind of reprovide those access again, without bringing down the server, so that when one such client is making one such request, like in more than the expected frequency, that's what it is supposed to implement. Any questions here?
Okay. So one example we can think about it like some website like ICICI Bank and all, or like some where we log in our password incorrectly 5 times, then it said that you should wait for 1 day or 2 day, and then you have to try it. Like there is a limited number of time. When after that we have to wait it, and then so okay.
That's like a very obvious example, but also think about the other examples. Like if interviewer asks you, can you give me some examples where you see rate limiting being demonstrated? So this is one of them. Yes, don't deny that. But other one could be like, think about during Thanksgiving or during a shopping spree that happens every year, when Black Fridays and things like that, right? What happens to those events where there are like, there could be, your server is in high demand in that time, and there could be potential attacks made to your server, and you want really to the server to be up and not down. So you will implement these strategies to make sure, that these threats are not encountered and dealt with, a lot of diligence. Yes, Manju?
Quick question. I understand, but as a consumer of an API, is there anywhere documented like it is this many number of calls is allowed during this period of time, or it is just going to restrict? Because from a user, as a user, I will not know how many times I can request.
So that's how is the logic that is coming in from the front end developer, right? So if it is responding with that event, say 429, right? So as a front end developer, you're not going to display 429. You're going to display that based on this particular response code, I have to display that, hey, you have tried enough. Your account is suspended for this many time or this many, whatever, right? You understand what I mean?
Yeah. So, but from the API, as a consumer of API, the UI itself doesn't know that it has to make only this many attempts, right?
But whatever request it is getting, it is sending to the server, right?
Okay. Yeah.
See,
Yeah. That's
there
what.
are, yeah. So there could be different logics. There could be one front-end logic that takes care of few things on its own, like for example, the password logic that you have to have two special characters, or allowing of not allowing special characters, or you should have at least one number and things like that. Those can be implemented at the front-end level, right?
Okay. Yeah. I understand.
So there are a lot of logics that apply at a front end level, which can be taken care by a front end developer in itself. But thinking about API, this is what it is. So if it is getting some request, it is sending to the server, and with as many requests, it gets like a 429, and that's when it will say to the end user displaying certain messages. That's how it's handled. Yes, Maulya.
I understood this concept and explanation, Suruchi. My question is, in interview, we might get an question like, what do you know about rate limiting policy, or give an example. I mean, I know it's a bit messy questions, but
No.
generally,
I mean, it's a good question. It's a very good question, and most
how,
appropriately. Sorry, can you please complete what you want to say?
no, how the interviewer will be asking us whether we know about this design principle of API, they want to understand by their question, or do we know what is rate
Yeah.
limit? Okay.
I mean, yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. What I'm trying to say is we are just discussing few conceptual stuff here. Just bear with me for a few more minutes. You'll see a lot of questions coming around it.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. So yes, moving on to the next one, right? URI versioning. So when the API is modified or the schema of the resources is changed, version should be attached to that resource. Do you guys understand about the versioning stuff? Any idea? Yes, Molly.
According to my understanding, versioning is like, for example, we have version 1, and if we change to some other version 2, then if we have multiple test cases which is related to those APIs, we have to check those things, working same URI for all version. I mean, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yes, Girish.
Yeah, so I was about to say that if anything small changes happen within the first version of the APIs, for example, if a parameter been added or parameter has changed, then can be used as a version 2 of that. And for the backward compatibility will always can be retained the V1 also. I mean,
Sorry, could you please
not
repeat?
always.
What did you say about backward compatibility?
I mean, for version 1, just for temporary purpose, we can have version 1, and but later everything will be moved to V2.
Perfect. I mean, that's a good way to look at in terms of backward compatibility and things like that. But versioning in its first place, okay, let's first give Manju a chance to speak. Yes, Manju, you have something to add?
Yeah, mostly what they covered, like, so okay, I have one version which is giving me a response, and then we're going in for a new new version is being there, but we are going to support the this version, but from the consumer they have to make some changes to the upgraded version. Until they do that, they can access the previous version by indicating the version number until that grace period is done. So that's what is my understanding.
Yeah, great. I mean, I'm happy that you guys understand the concept of version, why we need versioning, and the best part is to know about the backward compatibility. These are all very, very important topic. And in terms of, in an interview, people do ask this about versioning, right? I mean, what is your understanding of versioning? Why is versioning so important in the API world? So obviously, every evolution, right, what we call it, is the way, right? You develop a certain set of API, you want to evolve, which the API which involves change in the structure of the API schema in itself, then you definitely would need a different version, right? When we say different version, we are altogether supporting the existing functionality. At the same time, we are enhancing it further with some more additional functionality, right? And so to say, sometimes we also have versioning just for better performance, even if it's the same set of functionality, right? So versioning could be any reason, but if there is a version happening, right, version advancement happening, we should certainly keep in our mind that we do have forward thinking, but things should, also be backward compatible. Meaning today, the API supports version 1. It should also, version 2, it should also support version 1. So from an enterprise perspective, think about, I give you the example of Uber and Google, right? So is Uber the only customer for Google? There are many, many other customers, right, who are depending on Google APIs for navigation, for other business reasons. They use the Google Maps, right? Now, what if Uber has asked me certain set of features that I, as the Google organization, I provide Uber with those features, and then I have another customer who's asking for different set of features which is not even applicable to Mr. Uber, right? Then what will you do? You will have some basic common functionalities supported by some version, right? But you will also provide an additional version of the stuff which is not applicable to party A, but to the party B, and you provide to the party B. Does that mean that party B making calls to the version 1, if it does make, will not be supported? It will still be, right? And when you as an organization is just upgrading few versions without even a customer's demand, it is very important to kind of notify your customers, to give them a heads up that this is a new version coming up. So if you and this version is going to have these additional features which we are providing as like just an add-on, which will improve your business as well. And to accommodate those add-on changes, my customers have to be well informed in advance so that they can kind of adapt those changes in their functionality, right? So this is being forward compatible, and as well as a customer who is not even using those functionality and still want the version 1 of that feature should still have the backward compatibility. So versioning is very, very important when it comes in terms of advancement of features or business or efficiency. For whatever reasons, versioning comes and play into a lot of role play into this API world. Okay. Yes, Ashish.
Yeah, one question, like here,
Sure.
like there is a word schema. I understand schema in terms of SOAP, where we have XSDs and we are having complex type and type what these nodes are. So when it comes about REST API, what exactly the schema is?
It's just mainly in terms of modifying the resource. So suppose say you had order API which talks to order table, right? Now in the order table, there used to be like 5 columns, 5 fields, right? But now I'm adding certain additional feature to it, which has got like 6 to 7, 8 fields.
So it's just the payload
Right?
information schema,
Correct.
right? Payload.
Correct.
Okay.
So
So
now
like
to be able to consume the order API, I just, those could be mandatory fields or those could be non-mandatory fields. Depending on what, I'll have to have that accommodated to all my consumers of API, right? They should be able to accommodate this. So whenever this change comes, certainly a new version altogether will come. But say, suppose you are having a 5 fields, which was supposed to do XYZ functionality, but now you are adding some more functionality with those existing fields itself.
Yeah, yeah, I
Right?
understood that part. Yeah, yeah. My question was like for this schema, which I related in terms of old technologies, where we were having the namespaces, right? Namespace where we're having the versioning for SOAP,
Yeah, yeah.
access the namespaces and namespaces we will checking. So here for REST API, I was giving always as an advantage when I've been asked what are the advantages of REST over SOAP, that we need not to maintain all those namespaces and XSD. It is a very lightweight. So when we are talking about this schema, we just like referring the term, but we are just in the we are just talking about the payload context only, right? Nothing,
Right.
all those complex things
No,
which
no, no.
we yeah. Okay, yeah, cool, understood. Thank you.